Welcome to the In All Things podcast. Here, we talk about everything from friendship and personalities to contentment and faith. Our goal? To encourage you to seek Christ in all things. Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Sierra. Let's imagine you're in my living room and dive into real conversation. A few weeks ago, I asked for some new episode ideas of what people wanted to hear, and someone answered time management. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a great topic. We could all use some time management, and sometimes it's kind of a hard one to tackle. And more often than not, what we really need is a mindset shift. The Bible makes it pretty clear that our days are numbered, and it talks often about using our time wisely. Ephesians 5 says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil." And when it says evil, it's actually referring to the idea that this world is not our eternal home and it will come to an end. So this mindset shift comes when we begin to consider how we are spending our days here on earth. And the biggest question to ask is how I'm using my time right now. Is this honoring to God? So being productive, using our time to serve others, like our family and in ministry, taking care of the gifts that we've been given, like our bodies or our homes, those are all important. I found an article that I'm going to link in the show notes, but I want to read a little bit to you. Regarding time, the Bible counsels that we need to place our focus on that which is eternal as opposed to the fleeting pleasures of this passing world. Accordingly, we should move forward with diligence and divine purpose as the courses of our lives progress towards God's ultimate goal. Time spent with God and getting to know Him through reading His Word and prayer is never wasted. Time spent building up the body of Christ and loving others with God's love is time well spent. Time invested in sharing the gospel so that others will come to know salvation in Jesus bears eternal fruit. We should live as if each minute counts, because it really does. So using our time for our own enjoyment, while not always a bad thing, it doesn't produce eternal fruit. And I know that I often have a tendency to use my own time for my own enjoyment more often than I should. When our minds are fixed on the eternal, we can approach managing our time differently. One, we can be less stressed because on one hand, whatever we're attaining and accomplishing here on earth is temporary. And if we're straining for a work goal or a project of some sort, that material possession or a title won't matter in eternity. Relationships, discipleships, that is what matters in the long end. And that's not to say that we shouldn't keep our homes clean or do our homework or work hard at our jobs, but we definitely don't need to kill ourselves doing it. And two, we can learn to prioritize the tasks better that we do need to accomplish. What tasks are going to affect your part in furthering the kingdom? Keeping a clean home and making meals, that serves your family, which is serving in your first and foremost ministry. And I talked about that a little bit in the episode called "In Making Your Home a Haven." And at work, completing your tasks efficiently is important because no matter what our jobs are, we should be looking at them as a ministry as well. So when it comes to figuring out how to structure our time, that's when it's hard. It's hard to figure out how to prioritize our tasks, no matter what we're doing. And this is where there is a set answer for everyone. Our relationship with the Lord needs to come first in our lives. By changing our perspective of time, we can pursue the Lord in all that we do, and we can keep that in mind as we go about our day. When He is first, everything else can fall into place because we have His wisdom and His discernment to determine what then comes next in our prioritization. I used to be really good at managing time when I was in college. I had a great day planner, color-coded system, and a little more self-discipline in me than I do right now. But it worked really well. We all have to learn this art of time management, but once we enter a new life stage, the system that we had mastered can kind of become obsolete, and we have to then relearn all of the skills because our life looks different. So after I graduated college, I entered real life adulthood, and I've gone through a couple different stages of needing different time management skills. And that happens. And sometimes in life, that happens often. Part of finding a system that works for you is figuring out what works for you. And I know that's not really helpful, but my point is that you may need to try a couple different things before you find what actually works, because different personalities, different schedules, different tasks are going to have different systems that are going to be effective. So as I mentioned, the number one key is to prioritize. What I do is make a list of everything that needs to get done, and I go through it, prioritizing that list, figuring out what is most important. And this already is kind of where you get to play around with the system to figure out what's going to be effective for you. Maybe you want to do them from highest priority to lowest priority. Or I don't always do the number one priority thing on my list first. To me, prioritizing it means making sure that it gets done. So depending on how my day is going, I'll sometimes do the quickest tasks first to get those over with. Or I might alternate. I'll do a longer, bigger task and then take a break with one quick one and switch back and forth. And that kind of breaks up the day. And other times I'll complete my highest priority tasks first, which are often the larger, more time-consuming ones. And I have shared this analogy before, but I sometimes think of the jar analogy, where you have to imagine an empty glass jar and you have rocks and you have sand that needs to go in that jar. And your jar is kind of your day that you need to fill. So when you're needing to fit multiple tasks in this given time period, you need to put the most important tasks or the rocks in first to be sure they fit. Because then you can complete the smaller tasks as they fit in around, kind of like sand falling in around the rocks. If you pour the sand in first, those rocks aren't going to fit. So again, I don't necessarily think you have to complete those tasks first, but you have to make sure that time is allotted for them, for those higher priority items. And just to give a couple other ideas of different ways that I've structured my time in the past, like I said, I've gone through multiple stages where I've done different things to manage my time. So just a couple ideas. I mentioned the color-coded day planner, and this was when I was in college and I was working. I had just a standard day planner that I picked up at Target and different colored markers and washi tape that I used. So each class that I was in for school had a different color tape, and I would write in each of my assignments' due dates on the calendar. Work had another color in marker. If I was hanging out with a friend, that would have a color. If I was doing something church related, it had another color. I did get a little obsessive with this, but it was fun for me. And if you don't know, I am a very type A personality. So I enjoyed that. But most often, I will create lists. And this is something that I still do. I just went on vacation. And if you looked at my kitchen counter in the days leading up to that vacation, I had probably 7 different lists on them. Couple of them were duplicates because I had made them at different times and places. There were ones that were on my phone as well, but they were checklists of things to do, things to pack, or groceries to buy. I like checking things off, so I just keep making lists. My day planner now, as an adult, looks a little different than it did in college because my schedule is a little bit more like repetitive and set now. I have a set work schedule. I go to small group on the same day each week. Sometimes I even hang out with friends on the same night each week, and that is just how it looks in this season of life right now. So I don't use the color system anymore. But I do have a task list inside of my day planner, and I have a space under each day of things that I want to get done. So from just emptying the garbage or getting a car wash on a lunch break, or recording a podcast episode, it's all there. And then the priorities are marked with a little star. So like I said, those are just a couple ideas of ways to at least keep track of what needs to get done. But find what works for you. Maybe just a plain notebook paper and a pencil is your jam. And that works. And that's great. Maybe you like the elaborate, more color-coded thing. That's great. The thing is you just have to find what is going to help you. So one thing with time management is you need to allow yourself to take breaks when you need them, because it's going to allow your brain to refresh a little bit. On a day that you have a ton to get done, take breaks with smaller tasks. Maybe empty the dishwasher or fold some clothes. Now, of course, that's if you're at home. I don't have any examples of your job to give you. I personally am in purchasing at a manufacturing company, and so I write a lot of purchase orders in a given day. And sometimes it involves a lot of like dimensions to know and numbers and details. And so when I need a break, I will do another task that isn't so detailed. It's just kind of, checking the stock of something else that I need to do. And all it does is it gives my brain a little break, and then I can come back to that detailed task with fresh eyes. And it feels a little more productive then too. Another thing to remember is don't put pressure on yourself to always get everything on your list done. That is why you prioritize, so that your number ones, your highest priorities, can be sure to get done. And the other tiers, however you decided to tier it, maybe it's just, 5 priority tasks and the rest are the sand, so to speak. If those don't get done, those can easily be pushed to the next day if needed. That's kind of how that works. So don't put the pressure on yourself to always get it done. It requires a lot of grace for yourself. One thing that I've been thinking about lately when it comes to time management is that we need to listen to the Lord's convictions if He places something on our hearts. Something that I've felt convicted about is getting rid of my Hulu account over this coming summer. So now I just said that on my podcast, and now I have to do it. So thank you for keeping me accountable. But I haven't been watching a ton of TV lately anyway. And so I just have felt like I could be using that time differently. Listening to more podcasts, reading some books, doing more Bible studying. Doesn't mean I won't watch other movies here and there or something like that, but it is canceling one subscription where I've been spending some of my time, and it'll save me some money, which is a perk. So I think that just being aware when God is placing something on our hearts, we need to sit up and listen. We may need to reevaluate how much time we spend doing things like watching a TV show or scrolling through social media. Our phones will do this for us now. It gives you a screen report. And spending time reviewing things like that and going through and taking time and tallying it can be a good eye-opening exercise to determine where you need to cut back on spending time or even point out our idols that are in our lives. Last summer, a friend and I kept each other accountable, and we created an alarm on our phones so that by 7 p.m. every night, we would not go on social media anymore. And we did this for, I think, like 3 weeks or a month. And our nights then were able to be spent doing something more productive. Maybe it was spending time with our families. Maybe it was reading a book or reading the Bible. If you were in school, maybe it would be getting homework done. I also tend to sleep better when I don't end my night by being on my phone or watching TV. But those are only a couple things that may be keeping us from managing our time wisely. Maybe you're spending every single night with friends when you have other things that need to be done. Or maybe you're getting caught up in reading books, because while reading is something that I want to do more of, sometimes we can get just as caught up in a book as in a TV show. So thinking about what is holding us back from managing our time wisely is going to help us. But once we identify it, we have to actually do something about it. We can't just sit on that knowledge, right? But just as a note, it's also important to realize that God wants us to take time to rest. So there are times when resting our bodies is good. Sitting and watching a little TV or reading a book is not bad. I want to make that clear. It's when we become lazy that is not good. And Proverbs has a lot to say about laziness. I also did an episode on rest a couple months ago that talks about this. Our time is a very valuable thing. Each one of us has the exact same hours in the day as everybody else. But each moment of our time is a choice that we have. So will we spend it serving ourselves or serving the Lord? Being productive or being lazy? Resting or obsessing over our latest goal? Pursuing earthly possessions and achievements or pursuing relationships with others? 2 Corinthians talks about taking every thought captive. And I'm learning that that means a variety of things, but one is that we need to pause for a moment before making a choice and ask ourselves some questions like the one I just suggested. And to go back to the question I asked at the very beginning, how I'm using my time right now, is this honoring to God? Thank you for joining today's conversation. I hope this was an encouraging episode as you continue to walk with the Lord. If it was, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. This helps with the app's algorithm and allows In All Things to be accessible to even more people. Share with your friends and give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook. You can find us at In All Things Pod on both of those, and visit our website at inallthingspodcast.com. See you next time.